discussion are about robots. According to some experts, robots will one day become as common as smartphones. They're already more and more visible in homes, offices, and factory floors. Our speaker today, Mr. Pradeep David, has 35 years of experience in industrial automation and robotics. He says movies and science fiction convey the wrong image of robots. There are fears that robots will take away jobs and livelihoods. In actual fact, human-robot collaboration is essential for progress and for India to become globally competitive. Pradeep holds a master's degree in robotics from Clemson University, USA, an MBA from Marquette University, USA, and a BE in mechanical engineering from BITS Pilani. He is general manager of a Danish firm, Universal Robots for South Asia, based in Bangalore. He successfully helped introduce collaborative robots to India. He evangelized robot technology among small and medium establishments and educational institutions. He earlier served Rockwell Automation, the global Milwaukee-based automation leader, for 20 years in the US, Singapore, and India. He performed a variety of roles spanning sales, marketing, and business management. Pradeep is passionate about bringing a powerful technology revolution to the virtual digital online learning space. He says we can leverage artificial intelligence and interaction between humans, computers, and robots to deliver high-quality education. He will explain today how robots will be our most effective and reliable partners for progress and prosperity. Over to our distinguished speaker and also my cousin, Pradeep David.
Thank you. Thanks, Beena, and thanks everyone for dialing in today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. I'm just going to share my screen. And hopefully you can see this PowerPoint presentation. Can somebody just confirm you can see this?
Yeah,
yes.
We can.
Okay,
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So today, we're going to talk a little bit about what robots are. We're going to just start from the beginning and a little bit about what kinds of robots there are and how robots are integrated with our lives today, whether we know it or not, all right? And whether robots are going to take away jobs. This is one of the major concerns people have. And finally, what to expect in the future. How do we work with these things and why we should embrace what I call human-robot collaboration. Why humans and robots working together is the way of the future, okay? So hopefully we'll have some time for questions after that. So essentially, what is a robot in very, very simple terms? Essentially it's a machine which is a programmable one, which is capable of carrying out complex tasks. Now, thanks to COVID, I think many of us have been introduced to a robot like this in our homes. These things are very affordable. And I think many of us invested in this where, it's an automatic vacuum cleaner. You don't need to program the lay of the land. It kind of figures it out. It goes around the chair legs and, quite easy, comes back to dock itself when it needs power and all those kind of things. So it takes away a lot of the drudgery of everyday life. So I think thanks to COVID, we've been introduced to some of these things. And before COVID, these smart speakers, I think, have become quite popular where you can ask a question, what's the weather today, to one of these devices like Alexa, and it'll tell you, come back with, okay, here's the temperature, here's the humidity, and those kind of things, right? So all this kind of fits in to what we call this definition of robots that I've written up there, okay? I live in Bangalore. This girl, Lakshanya, is a 17-year-old. She's actually ITF rated. And this is a little robot that she's playing with, it's nothing but a ball feeder. And, so robots are there in our everyday life. We basically have many, many different types of robots. So this session is not really to introduce you to all the types of robots. It's a little more philosophical as to how robots and we are going to interexist, So in fact, one thing I'd like to correct on the introductions is I used to be the general manager of Universal Robots. I retired from there about a year ago. So just to make that record straight, I'm no longer the general manager of Universal Robots, but I was till last February. Okay, we used to do things like this, the articulated robot. Articulated robot means like your arm you've got 6 degrees of freedom, you've got your shoulder, you've got your elbow, you've got your wrist that does 3 degrees of freedom, an articulated robot. So that's what we used to sell. But there are many types of robots. And I think you've seen many of these robots with different legs, bipedal robots. And if you go on to the right-hand side, entertainment robots, education robots, medical robots. I don't think I need to talk about this, but there are many, many, many different types of robots that are integrated with lives today, with our lives today, okay? Here is one that, this is from my company, okay, which are Universal Robots, on making pizzas. This is in Paris, where there's an entrepreneur who decided that, hey, he wants to run this company where robots are made. You can see the dough being stamped out. You can see the robot arm. Robot arm is nothing but a 6 degrees of freedom articulated arm, like I mentioned. Here's a cell phone app that you just choose, okay, I want so-and-so type of pizza, cheese pizza, and it goes, picks out the ingredients, and everything else is automated. All you have to do, one person runs the show. You just have to fill in the tomatoes or the olives or the cheese or whatever is running short at the back end, right? And in fact, it also does the garnishing here. It does the cutting, and it pushes it out of the window. So if you're driving through, you can pick your pizza as you drive by, okay? So this is an example of human-robot collaboration where the chef and the robot work together and, create something of our everyday lives. Now, one of the things that costs about €500,000 today to make a setup like this, not quite affordable, right? But trust me, the prices are coming down rapidly. And we've done many things like this in India, which I'm going to show you a few. Here's another example. Just take a look at this. Hopefully you can hear the video.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. I'm going to turn this volume down. And this lady happens to be Dr. Merritt Moore, who's a 21st century polymath. She's an astronaut. She's a quantum physicist. And she's also, by the way, a ballerina. So during COVID, when she was a little lonely, in her lab, rather than have a ballet partner come, she programmed the robot to dance with her, right? So the point is, we mentioned a chef working with a robot. Here I'm showing a ballerina working with a robot. Robots are becoming commonplace now in everyday life, whether it's dancing, and you don't need to be a sophisticated programmer with a lot of programming skills to make this thing work, right? So a little bit about the history of change. This happens to be New York City, Fifth Avenue back in 1900. The picture on the left, you can see that there's nothing but horse-drawn buggies, okay? And the picture on the right, you can see nothing but Model Ts, and it's a matter of 10 years or 13 years span where all the horse-drawn buggies got changed to Ford's famous Model T, when he said, you can have any color as long as it's black. There's something significant about this picture. That is, notice that in this, there happens to be one vehicle, one Model T on the left-hand side. If you look on the right-hand side, almost at exactly the same spot, there's only one horse-drawn buggy, okay? So almost over a century ago, it just took 10 years, 13 years or something like that to completely change the paradigm from, horse-drawn buggies to vehicles. Now, that was a century ago, and if you were not fast enough, if you happened to be a horse and buggy axle maker and you didn't change to some kind of automotive, you would be starving, right? You would not be able to feed your family because you've not kept pace with the times. Now, that was a century ago. Let's take a look at technologies accelerating today. I think there's no need to tell you that we're accelerating at a much, much faster pace than the Model T, okay? In fact, to understand the concept of exponential, if Wembley Stadium, which we're all familiar with, if Wembley Stadium had a leak, a watering system developed a fault, in minute 1, there's 1 drop that was released. In minute 2, 2 drops were released. In minute 3, double that, you got the point. How long would it take to fill the stadium? Okay. So just think about that. How long do you think it would actually take to fill the stadium, where every minute, double the number of drops are leaked from that leaky faucet? Okay. And the answer happens to be in 44 minutes. Just so before halftime, which is 45 minutes, this entire stadium, you'll actually be swimming out of it. That is the power of exponential, the formula and for the mathematically minded, 2 raised to the power of n minus 1. So in the 44th minute, 2 raised to the power of 43 is that many drops of water, which is 112% of the capacity of the stadium. Okay. So this is just a mathematical rendition of the speed of change and why we need to be worried about, how fast things are changing today. Okay. So let's go back to history one more time, and that this is the Locomotive Act back in 1865 in London. You know that when the automotive was first discovered, the law was passed that a man with a red flag needs to walk in front of the car. Why? Well, because these things are dangerous. They are iron horses. They can kill people. The horse and buggy people were very powerful, and they said, look, you need one of these things on the road, have a guy with a red flag walking in front of it because it's dangerous. It kills people. Well, the fact is it's true, because if you take the statistics today from the World Health Organization, we currently kill about 1.3 million people on the road every single year. Okay, so it's a very valid point. Okay, however, the point is when we make judgments, when we make, I think all of us own cars right now. I think or maybe multiple cars for sure. It's such a utility vehicle thing that happened, but it took a long time for legislation to catch up with the utility. Okay, and once again, this is over a century ago. Another one I found very interesting. I just read this yesterday in a book where the British government, scurvy, when the sailors were on boats, all of them were dying, their gums used to swell up after 40 days and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And finally, I think we all know that if you give limes to them, it stopped this gums from swelling up and bleeding and those kind of things. But how long did it take for the mandate to happen? 264 years after somebody figured out, that limes can prevent scurvy. The mandate took 265 years to happen. Okay, so any ship leaving London or leaving the coast of England had to have limes on board. The mandate took 264 years. What am I trying to show here? I love this statement. It's from E.O. Wilson, which was an American social biologist who said that, and this is a debate that happened in Harvard. He says that we as human beings, we've got Paleolithic emotions, okay? And we have, medieval institutions. We just saw the medieval institutions which make laws about the guy with the red flag or, having lemons on board the ship. And we have godlike technologies. In fact, the technologies we have are more godlike every single day right now. Okay, you and I are exposed to it. Robotics happens to be one of them. Okay. However, our institutions that are making laws for robotics and AI and all these things lag way behind. That's historically the case. Okay, we've seen that. And I think a plea on this talk is going to be for all of us, people who are intelligent, people who can make an impact on legislation. It's really an appeal that we get involved, because while AI and robotics can have a lot of uses, it can also be terrifying. And it's important that we all are involved and we evolve our laws rapidly, and not like what happened with scurvy and what happened with the red flag, And I think what we are limited by is our own biology. We talk about Paleolithic emotions. So when we see a snake, the first thing that happens is either the fight or the flight, right? That's inbuilt into our it's wired into our brains. We can't help that, right? But what they found in this Rebecca Costa book that I was talking to Mr. Bala about just before we started the call, we are limited by this, because if there's a problem, like for example, global warming, and we don't see it as an immediate threat, our brains are functioning such that we don't respond to it. Oh, we kick the can down the road, it's somebody else's problem, maybe our children's problem, or maybe 2 generations later. Okay, very rarely do we intellectuals get involved in the problems that we don't see us affecting us today. Everybody is involved with Ukraine right now. It's an immediate threat. But what about global warming? What about all these other things that we know are problems? The pollution of the sea, or robots. Okay, robots taking over the world. If we don't see an immediate threat, we don't act. So I think the appeal here is to start thinking about it. How do we get involved in a meaningful way in these technologies? Okay. So I'll just address the question of jobs, because that comes up with robots a lot. So, back in the 1800s, 90% of us were in the farms. So this happens to be US, but it's very similar in India and everywhere in the globe. 90% of us were in the farms feeding our bellies, right? Our jobs were basically to put food on the table for our children, for our families. 90% of us were in the farms. In the 2000s, 2.6% of us are in the farms. Does that mean we're starving? I don't think so. I think we have more food now, more than ever before in history. And are we really worried about the meal coming tomorrow? Or are our supply chains pretty well developed? So I think we need to understand that this has happened from time immemorial. Technologies have come in, okay, we've incorporated agriculture and sophisticated technologies. It doesn't mean we're out of jobs. Our jobs have changed from agrarian to technology and to other things, right? So I think there is history to this. Also, one more story I'd like to share is John Henry. I think we've all seen this guy. You know, he was the steel driving man, as they called him. And there was a contest between him and the steam powered engines, you know, to bust a hole, you know, to make these tunnels through the rocks. Very strong guy, and he and his team. So they had a competition, John Henry and the steam powered drill. And I think we all know how the story ended. You know, John Henry lay dead at the end of it because his heart gave out. He was the strongest man, but he couldn't keep up with the steam powered drill. Today, 100 years later, we don't have any men, you know, doing this stuff. We have machines doing it. Okay. So I think the point here is machine triumph is human triumph. We don't need to be worried about the fact that machines are more powerful than men. That's a great thing. It's a triumph of our mind. And I think we need to embrace it. And that's where robots come in. Okay. So let's now get into robots. And what I talk about, human computer integration. Okay. There's a big field. I mean, it involves ergonomics, engineering, all these kind of things. You can see, I'm only going to touch on a very small portion, and that is how it helps the ergonomics as well as the competitiveness of industry, okay, that's where the background I'm coming from. So let's take a look at Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov, one of the smartest guys on the earth, right? And we all know that this was a picture of when he lost to Big Blue, when he lost the chess match, and everybody was stunned, right? That the grandmaster of the world, the smartest guy in the world, was defeated by a computer, right? Many, many years ago, 1994. Today, Garry Kasparov has made this statement: human-computer hybrid teams are almost universally better when competing against opponents who are solely human or solely machine. Okay, this is a person who, he got defeated by a computer, and now he realizes that it's not just the computer or just the grandmaster that can be very powerful. It's when a human and a computer work together because they have unique skills. You know, the human's intuition is there. The computer doesn't have really that much intuition. We're building it into it with AI. But there's a certain combination of humans and computers that can do amazing things. Okay, and I'm going to show you that today. So, you know, if we as older people and we want to guide our children as to what should your future be, should you be looking at, you know, what kind of job is going to be there 20 years from now, I think we need to clearly identify where human intelligence is and where machine intelligence is, because they're two different spectrums. And, you know, for example, pattern recognition is extremely powerful for machines. So even your best radiologist that you have may have seen 1 million scans throughout his life of 40 years or something, but the machine may have seen every one that exists in the world, 60, 80, 100 million, right? And remembers every one of them. So clearly pattern recognition will be better with the machine. However, flexibility. This patient had these kind of symptoms versus this one had all these different combinations. That is human intelligence, right? When you have to draw parallels between different spheres. Empathy and creativity, you know? So jobs which have a lot of empathy, where what a doctor does when, you know, he's talking to a dying patient. These are kind of things that human intelligence, nothing can beat human intelligence for this, you know? Common sense is another very uncommon thing on the machine spectrum. It just doesn't have that. But when you talk about multiple millions of calculations in a nanosecond, yes, the machine can do it far better than we can, right? So guide our children on the left-hand side to jobs which have these traits and not the ones on the right-hand side, because the right-hand side ones are going to be replaced. Whether you like it or not, that's going to happen. Okay. So Harvard also, you know, did this study. I think many of you may have seen this, where this, you know, affects you and me, because if we go for a scan tomorrow, we notice that a pathologist can make errors 3.5% of the time, okay? An AI model, an artificial intelligence model, makes errors approximately 3% of the time. But you put the two together, a pathologist using his human skills, and you put an AI model, which is a very smart algorithm, and it only found about 0.5%. Now, I would very much like my scan if I was, let's say somebody was suffering from, breast cancer or something of that nature. I would like an AI model with a pathologist because I'm going to have far more accuracy, and something I can rely on much better. And this metastatic breast cancer research was done at Harvard. And I think we need to pay cognizance to this. Humans do some things really well. Machines do something really well. You put the two together, they do amazing things, which neither one of them can do individually. That's human-robot collaboration. I'd just like to pause for a second and just make sure that I haven't lost anyone. And if there's any question or anything like that, you're welcome to ask. I don't want this to be a one-way thing. So I'll just stop the share for a second. Is there any questions anybody has?
Yeah, Pradeep, we will take the questions at the end of the presentation. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. So I'll share that again, move on. And, in the schools, for example, I'm now consulting with a school where we've got a robot, a school in Bangalore International School, where a robot and a human are actually doing the class together. If you look at Byju's, one of the largest ed tech companies, they're now talking about putting two teachers. Why? If I want to learn Pythagoras' theorem, there's no need for a teacher to do that. Because if you look at a teacher today, 80% of her time is spent on preparing for lessons, doing the roll call, doing the assessments of the teacher later on. Whereas, do we really want the teacher to be doing that? This is, if I go to Khan Academy, it'll tell me what Pythagoras' theorem is better than any teacher can. The best teacher in the world could probably be delivering that for me, right? What I need the teacher to be doing 80% of the time is, this student needs more attention. That student is very intelligent. I need to challenge him more. That's where 80% of our time needs to be going. And that's why Byju is doing this, and this robot called Pepper that they've introduced, where the content is delivered by the robot and the teacher manages the classroom so that she finds out which student needs the most attention. Here's another great example of human-robot collaboration, right? We've seen it in ballerinas, we've seen it in chefs, now we're seeing it in the teaching sphere, okay? I'm just trying to give you examples of many of these things where, this is one that I was involved in Madurai. I think we've all heard of this company, Arvind Eye Hospital. Orolab is the company that actually does the engineering for them. And, one of the things about them is glaucoma. It was a big problem in India, and people with diabetic retinopathy and all that, they lose their eyesight needlessly, right? It's a very simple operation. What they do is they normally make a little incision here, pull this lens out and put another lens in. The only problem was that these lenses used to cost $3,000 when you buy it from Johnson & Johnson or Bausch & Lomb or one of these foreign companies. Orolab, I'm proud to tell you today, delivers the same quality lenses at 270 rupees, okay? So the labor that you and I have, maybe our drivers or our maids or something, can afford 300 rupees, for their parents to have an operation like this and restore their sight. It's needless blindness, right? So how has robots helped Orolab become so competitive? Let me just show that. You hear the happy people who've got the eyes, they go on a camp, they have the surgery, one eye, and they come back and then come back after a few months, do the second one. Very affordable, Proud to be a part of this kind of, or help this organization be competitive. But here is the Orolab story. They hire high school graduates. These girls are, 18 to 20 years old. They finished high school. And this company, Universal Robots, is what I was GM for before. Notice the robot is now picking up the plexiglass piece, putting it in the machine for machining, and it does the curvature. And these girls, who are just high school people, we teach them how to program these robots, right? I'm just trying to explain to you, you don't need to be a graduate and a master's degree or a computer scientist to program robots anymore, right? Just some intuition, and we can do that. We can show how this can be done. I'll just fast forward this for interest of time. You can see 90% of Orolab, 90% are women, okay? Notice here, only 10% are men. And now, many people are happy, with the eyesight back, but let me give you the business side of things, okay? In the business side of things, the Arvind Eye Hospital was their only customer. They had about 10 employees. They used to make 150 lenses a day. They put in 8 of these robots, robotic meaning the little arms, which cost about 15 lakhs a piece. And today, they are selling these lenses to 150 countries. Okay, they have 700 people employed. Okay, people who say robots take jobs, I like to show them this slide. I've done this many times on TV also, where when we say robots take jobs, no, robots don't take jobs. It's poor management decisions that take jobs. Here, because the manager made the right decision, their business flourished. They exported more, right? And they were able to hire more people. That's what causes jobs, not keeping jobs at the lowest spectrum, where it's a pick and place, where human beings shouldn't really be doing it, right? This is jobs which are quality work. So I wish the statement is not make in India, but it make with quality in India. After all, I would challenge you to see which are the products that you buy in the market. We look at a German car, we know it's quality, right? A BMW or a Audi or something like that, or we look at Japanese or Korean TVs, very good, high quality. Globally, they're known as that. Are there many Indian products that we know of? I'm proud to say Arvind Eye Hospital is one, right? 150 countries find their quality so good, that they want to buy it from us because it costs only 270 rupees as opposed to 3,000, right? So I think the point here is robots can create jobs. Okay, it helps you be more competitive. It helps you keep your doors open. And when you keep your doors open, your business flourishes. And that's when you employ more people, right? So embrace technology to be more competitive, to be more productive, to have better quality. This is just one example. I have many, many such, where small and medium business, notice that Arvind Eye Hospital is not like a Bajaj Auto, which uses 150 of these robots, but it's a small company. It only used 8 robots. But with that, they were able to be competitive globally, right? So I think it's a compelling story. And I also want to show people who may not be involved in manufacturing, what a manufacturing setup still looks like. Okay? So on the left-hand side, you can see there's a press, which is pressing somewhere in China, some object there. And these men, all that they're doing is picking up the stamped part and pulling it out. Notice the guy in the middle, he's quite big. He's ducking to prevent his head getting cut off. Yeah. You may be appalled that this is happening in manufacturing, but yes, many of our own manufacturing, look at the one on the right. These are chips packets. These women are acting like robots. They're picking up, say, 30 packets of chips. And notice after 30 are over, it'll turn to the next woman. I'd like to challenge you, is this really a job for a human being? Or is this a job for a robot, the one on the left and right? So we can say, yes, we want to preserve jobs. These people have families to feed. All very true. But the fact is, if this guy who's making chips continues this way, he'll be out of business pretty soon. Okay? So we need to create high-level jobs, very similar to how we did Orolab. And that means using the best technology available. Okay? And jobs are created by creating better quality, okay, not by preserving the lowest skilled jobs. Okay, the lowest skilled jobs are going to go into obsolescence, whether we like it or not. Okay. Okay, and I call it the 5 Ds: jobs that are dull, dirty, dangerous, that are difficult, jobs where distancing is required. We saw that in COVID, and so these are the 5 jobs. This is the job we did in Chennai. This is actually in your backyard at Dell. These computers are coming out, and there used to be 3 people taking the computer, which is quite heavy actually. If you 3 or 4 of these are going every minute. So if you carry these boxes and put them in, they used to drop a computer and damage it. Today, look, with the robot is holding the thing up, the server up. This guy does the skillful job of putting the end caps, the styrofoam caps on it, and one person is now moving the line, what 3 people used to do. In fact, the plant manager told me that during COVID, they couldn't have run the line because of social distancing. But because of this, they could run the line. Okay. Chennai actually is a landmark in this. The Dell has about something like 8 to 10 plants around the globe. People in the other plants around the globe have copied what they've done in Chennai. Okay. So proud success at one of the major manufacturers where, again, humans and robots working together for better productivity. Okay. Of course, we managed to help ergonomics wise. The guy doesn't have any back issues now because he's not carrying these things. The productivity has gone up, quality has gone up because they don't drop the boxes, all these things. Okay. I think I just missed one slide where the IMF talks about, Indians don't use enough women in the labor. And I've got nothing but pictures of women here using robots in various SMEs around the country, okay? This actually happens to be in Chennai again, the bottom right, where they are doing this Udayam dal packaging, So this girl this lady used to carry these dal packets and put them in. Today, the robot is packaging it. And all she does is put the plastic bag in and, moves from one to the other, okay? So many, many examples, and they're unskilled people, and they are programming the robot and they're making it. The girl the lady on the left top, that's in Pune. She barely, she can only speak Marathi. We taught her how to program. She's programming the robot now to load and unload parts from the machine, okay? Coming out of manufacturing, we see robots now in the medical field where it's actually doing physiotherapy. On the right-hand side, you can see where it, you need to get your electrical vehicle charged. The robot will go pick up the battery pack, come and connect it. Bottom left, where it's actually testing out the washing machine. How many times I open and close the door without it breaking. And the bottom right is my favorite for cooking. So I want to make pancakes. There's 2 robotic arms have been programmed. As long as you give the right ingredients, it can make whatever you need. So once again, human robots collaboration. The nurse now, instead of having physiotherapists, for 10 patients, I can have one physiotherapist who does this and handles 10 patients. Okay. So the bottom right, you can see that's a celebrity chef. We just put some sensors on his hands and he cooked. We pick up those signals from him, and then the robot replicates what he's doing. Okay. All right. Somebody talked about surgery. I love this one. This is brain surgery while the patient is awake. Okay. This is a Bangladeshi doctor somewhere in the Aurora labs in Minneapolis, where the robotic arm is connected to the MRI system, and the GPS coordinates of the brain tumor are fed to the robot. So the robot is guiding the surgeon. So the surgeon, here you can actually see the brain, and you can see that white stuff, which is the tumor, which is being sucked out. So the surgeon now knows exactly where the nerves are, so he can avoid damaging the nerves. And the guy is talking. I don't know whether you can see, but his mouth is moving. He's talking to the surgeon while the operation is going. It's phenomenal. Yeah. Human-robot collaboration. The human is the surgeon with all the skills, talking to the patient, the empathy, the skills that he needs. The robot, it's looking at the flight plan. It's saying, here's where the danger is. Here's where you need to make a left by so many mm. Here's how deep you need to go, right? As a team, they can be extremely successful. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but I'll just very quickly run through a few more interesting examples where top left, you can see robots are splicing high tension wires together, while the system is live. Human beings used to go do that and get electrocuted. Bottom right, you can see this is in Singapore, tile laying, lots of people, if you've done construction, you can see how painful that process is of tile laying. The guy goes on holiday. Here you can see the robot just simply, you give the pattern to it and it puts the tile so that it works with the tiler and you have better efficiencies, So in our everyday life, okay, AI will not replace human managers. I've talked about that. Here's a few more examples. This is me in Singapore, where a robot is actually making an omelette for me. Our own robot here, I just hit a button, put the plate there, choose the condiments I want, and it goes ahead and makes the the omelette. While you see that, I'll show, I know RCB has never won an IPL trophy. It's a sore point with us, with Chennai keeping on winning. But at least what we can do is have a robotic cheerleader there. You see a robot is doing a 4 and a 6 out there as De Villiers hits a 4 or 6. Or bottom right, at the celebrity booth, you choose a whiskey or a beer, and the robotic arm actually pours it for you. So a bartender and a robot working together, cheerleader and a robot working together, chef and a robot working together, etc. It also makes dosas, by the way. Okay, last couple of slides. a little bit of a wake-up call for us in India. You know, we believe we're going to be a powerful manufacturing nation, those kind of things, but I'm a little more skeptical because when we look at the average, you know, the average density of robots in the world, the average is about 100, okay? 100 robots per 10,000 employees, okay? Where do we see India on this curve? You know, not yet, but I also noticed that the countries with the maximum robot density are the ones which have the least unemployment. Okay, so when we are worried about employment and robots taking jobs, the guys who have actually put in robots have less unemployment issues because they're so competitive. Their products are so much better in terms of variability, quality, and productivity, right? So if you're interested in knowing where India is there at 4. We happen to be 25 times behind the global average in the robot density. Okay, so while we pride ourselves of being a manufacturing powerhouse, we are not adopting the technology, despite it being, say, 14, 15 lakhs investment. You know, it's not penetrated India. So we are resistant to technology. You know, and I think we need to understand the value of things like robots, and it is the future. And if we lag like this, it'll be very difficult. You know, our competition, China, look at them, 140 robots per 10,000 employees. Okay. By the way, they happened to be very close to India just 5 years ago before Xi Jinping started his whole robotic initiative. So we can make leaps and bounds, provided we have some help from the government. Instead of taxing robots that are coming in, you know, give incentives for manufacturers to use robots, because it's going to keep it's not going to take jobs. It's going to keep your doors open, make you more competitive globally, right? Okay, takeaways, there's the last slide. What I hope I've conveyed in this talk, number one, I only talked about a small portion of human-robot collaboration, and there's a lot more in psychology and you know, cognitive thinking, all these things. I also mentioned that humans and robots have a major multiplication effect, okay? Whether we saw it with a ballerina, whether we saw it with manufacturing, whether we saw it with a surgeon, there are many, many benefits, even for radiology and stuff like that, right? So it's important we embrace this technology. Singularity is the next few years. Singularity is when do robots actually become more powerful than human beings? In other words, their brain power, their physical power actually exceeds what a human being has. That's not too far away, right? There are many predictions, you know, so I won't give a prediction here, but by 2045, these machines can actually be about 1 billion times more powerful than us, 1 billion. Okay, so remember that horse-drawn carriage and the cart, you know, we're talking now in the next few months, these things may actually take over, their intelligence may exceed what we are capable of thinking of and perceiving. So unless we get involved in litigation, you know, in legislation, I'm sorry, you know, I think it's very important for intellectuals to get involved, and medieval institutions, you know, at least very quickly, you know, there's a lot of racism that goes on in AI algorithms today. People are finding it out. We need to be proactive. We need to be ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve, yeah? Because this is happening whether we like it or not. Robots will create many jobs. That's what I believe in. Yes, they're going to take some lower level jobs with no skills, but it's your responsibility and mine. Just like our forefathers were all in the fields, right? But only 2% now in the fields. We're not starving. We've all learned different skills. We have to teach people. We have to upskill them now. That's incumbent on us to do that, you know, to embrace the newer technologies. And machine triumph is human triumph. So when we have smart machines like drones doing things that humans used to do, we need to be proud of it because we made those, right? And we should be able to control them. We should keep control of them. India lags in robot adoption. Okay, it's a concern I have. I mean, I ran the operations in India for 5 years of the largest collaborative manufacturing robot company in the world, right? We were the ones who invented it. It's one of the largest growing fields. I'm very sorry to say we were less than 1% of our company's turnover. It was embarrassing for me to present what India was doing when I had my global colleagues around, right? So the reality is we are lagging, okay? And I think it's our mindset that we are against automation and robots, but I think if we don't wake up very soon, we're not going to be competitive, okay? With that, I'll turn it over to the MC. Please take it away for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeep, for the, you have really opened our eyes regarding robots. And we keep thinking, I'm also from the industry, we always keep thinking that it takes away jobs. But it shows in, I mean, you have given a different picture. Now, the forum is open for questions. You can, I think we have less number of people, so.
There's one hand. Sujesh, yeah, Sujesh, go ahead.
You had put a slide where you had mentioned the number of robots and unemployment.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it is the unemployment because they were not getting enough people that they had to switch over to technology. I think the analogy is that is what I infer.
It's not only the fact that you didn't have labor. So, I mean, in some cases, like in the case of Dell that I showed you, they could not have run their production, because people had gone back to their villages during COVID and they would have had to shut their production line, right? So robots help there. But in India, that's not necessarily the case, right? You have plenty of labor, people are willing to work. And if you go to places, smaller places, people are flooding in from Bihar, from, all different places to work. So labor is available and it's cheap. So we tend to default to cheap, okay? So if you're not far-sighted enough, like Aurolab was, I remember having a discussion with the Aurolab general manager when we sold robots to them. He says, my labor only costs 5,000 rupees, for a month. Why should I be putting your robots for 15 lakhs? And we had this discussion, we did the calculation. You can't justify it only on labor. It is the quality. It is the productivity. It is the variability. Imagine if you made contact lenses and I bought a -5 lens from you today and a -5 lens from you 2 years from now, and they were different. Would you ever buy it from me again? No, right? Because the variability was so high. Robots are allowing us to have very good quality. So it's not only labor, it's also productivity, it's also quality, it's also ergonomics. I had a lady who was running a garment factory. She said, hey, you keep talking about this being a robot arm. I want to hire somebody who has only one arm. Can this robot be the second arm? I said, wow, I never even thought about that. That's great. Yes, we can hire people, who are challenged, physically challenged, and have the robot complement. So there are many uses, Sujesh, many reasons why robots could be used by people.
Thank you.
So this, am I heard? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes.
What are the applications of robots in defense industries?
Yeah, there are many, there are some confidential ones, of course, but, things like mine sweeping, think about like the war is going on right now. People plant a lot of mines, people lose their legs because kids walk on these mines and they explode, right? So we have worked with the DRDO to do mine sweeping applications. Wouldn't you rather have a robotic arm that goes and puts its feet, and if it blows up, you got a robot that's blown up, not somebody's hand, right? So that's one example. We have the DARPA, which is the Department of Aerospace, where today you have 2 pilots, right? You and I, Mr. Madhu, are from the older generation. We remember the old 707 Boeing, right? You know how many pilots used to be in a Boeing 707? Anybody have an idea? There used to be 5 pilots, right? There used to be a pilot, a co-pilot, a radio engineer, and a navigator, and something else, flight engineer. Today, there's no plane with more than 2 pilots in it, right? There's just basically 2, sometimes maybe 3. Now they're talking about taking it from 2 to 1, right? Wherein there is so much automation going on, right? So there's a lot of research going on that. For example, there was the Malaysian Airlines where the pilot decided to commit suicide and took the plane with him, right? So would you want to have the vagaries of a pilot, or would you want that to be balanced with a machine that you can program, So there are many ethical issues to deal with, but to answer your question, Mr. Ranjit, there's many defense applications. I'm not privy to all of them. I know that for bomb making, I'm familiar with some of these because I've dealt with them, but I'm sure there are many more.
Okay, I think Bala?
Yeah, I'm the only one, I think, who can go back 60 years in history. I was with IBM India, and the first application, at the time it was called EDP department, Electronic Data Processing. And the first applications are always accounting. And all the accountants were opposed to it because they thought they would lose their jobs. And most important application accounting was payroll calculation. I think no country had the complications of payroll that India had. And anyway, with a lot of resistance, both government and private sector started using computers from IBM for accounting, in particular payroll calculation. Today, it looks very silly, but that's why I'm saying I'm the only one in this group who can go back 60 years and talk about our first automation experience.
Very good example. Thank you. That's a nice one.
Yeah,
Ranjit, if I can ask a question.
Sure. Magdum, please go ahead.
Okay. Pradeep, you talked about the challenges, in the cost part of it. I'm sure that there are several challenges in robotics. So what comes first? India being very smallest adopter of robotics compared globally. So what comes first? If it is, we have to make a change.
Yeah, I think it's the mindset. If like I was telling Mr. Sujesh, if we only look at robots replacing human beings, the labor cost, you'll almost never be able to justify, especially at Indian rates, right? You'll almost never be able to justify a robot for your manufacturing operations. So let's forget manufacturing. Let's take our homes. Thanks to COVID and all of us sitting at home and our helper was not there, what did we all tend to look at? How do we make our lives easier, right? We got a robot to do our vacuum cleaning, correct? I think many of us bought it. I know I did. I'm sure many of you on the call probably did the same, right? So sometimes necessity, we go and use these things. So I'm sorry, your question was again
I said what comes first and then what are some of, the order of challenges to know.
Correct. So I think the open mind, and that is whenever I've managed to convince a SME, a small and medium enterprise, to look at the quality of their product, okay? Look at the productivity, and they, many people just tend to dismiss it. Oh, I'll just get 3 people, 3 shifts. But they don't realize every employee that you have, you've got so much more burden, right? You've got the canteen facilities, you've got the security, the fact that they only work 7 hours, maybe 6.5 hours a day, right? They take leave. So if I've got an order, I may not be able to fulfill it because they're on leave. When you put all these things together, you look at the variability of quality, a huge one. I think in India, with our quality so poor in many instances, yes, I've worked in the US and I've worked in Singapore, so I know what Indian products are considered, especially the very, very high engineering products. Our quality is not the best. So we need things like automation and robots and various other technologies, IoT, for example, sensors. So we need to accept that it's not just labor, but it's productivity, quality, variability, ergonomics. When we accept that, it's a no-brainer to start putting robots in.
Is the cost of robotics in the sense, okay, one is mindset, okay, you talked about government incentives, etc., which is not available. So that's a big hindrance, you think? If the robots become 1/3 of what is cost now, India could adopt much faster.
Yeah, I think, the government is starting to do a few things. For example, productivity linked incentives are there, PLI scheme. So that's very good. However, you know that we still tax import of robots, and there's almost no robots being made in India. These articulated robots all come from either Japan or Denmark or the US or somewhere. There are some Indian companies starting, but so I understand we need to protect Indian industries, but robotics is 40 years old, 60 years old. The first robot was put in General Motors in 1960. I think when I was born, around that time, So it's not new technologies. Why are we still taxing robots at 20-25%? I think we can make an impact there. We should not be putting these huge import penalties for something that's aiding manufacturers to be competitive globally, right? We've tried to make that representation to the government in many different ways. Even the CII is trying to help us with that, but I think we've still got a problem there.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 young members here. One is not members exactly, they were in the audience. Nitish and Akansha, you want to ask any questions?
No doubt, sir, but I felt it was really excellent, sir. I liked everything you said. It was very logical and points are wonderful.
Okay, thank you, Nitish. And Akansha?
Same here, Uncle. Even I totally agree that our future, it is it is not going to change. Robotics is going to come in. It's something here in India, we're taking a little time to accept it, but it is going to happen in a couple of years. Now, even in India, everything is automatic. You have something called the Google Home. Nowadays, people don't even get up to even switch on the light. They just say, switch on the lights, on the AC. So it's something that is going to happen in the near future. And it's something we just have to accept. It's anyway going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Akansha. So anyone else, any questions? Yeah, Bina, you can unmute yourself.
Unmute, Bina.
No, you're muted still. Bina, you're mute. Yeah.
Yeah, how expensive is it to have a robot in a classroom, school classroom?
I think around 5 lakhs. I believe their last price was approximately that much. Yeah, it's quite affordable. And so, yeah, I believe that that's what the price is. Yeah. It starts at 5 and then it goes up depending on the type of functionality. If you need more back and forth interaction, sentiment analysis of the student and all. But I think the very basic one will probably start at 5 for all the different coursework, ICSE, IGCSE. They've got coursework that goes with it and stuff like that. I can put you in touch with the right people if you're interested in that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So if there are no more questions, we will thank Pradeep. Pradeep, on behalf of anyone else? Okay. Pradeep, on behalf of Rotary Club of Madras South, I thank you for that insightful speech, presentation. We really don't think about all these, unless somebody tells us.
True.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you.
And
thank you. My appeal would be to get involved in this technology, because I think all of you are very powerful. You'll be able to help with legislation, and it's important.
Sure. Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep.